Alright, but yeah, here's the skill tree for Slayer. This is what I chose as my main class setup. Basically put points into everything at least once. Maxed out the crit because, you know, crit is good DPS. But the things that I took points out of or didn't really put points into were three different things. Critical hit PP gain, Gunblade focus reset PP gain, and Gunblade focus gauge amplifier. The reason why I didn't choose those three things, like to put full points into, is because putting more points into this increased the activation probability, and did not increase how much PP you actually gained from your crits. And you had to put like 5 points to get it to 100%, which is nice, but the Slayer class honestly doesn't need photon power, as if you do it right with the slug shot and relentless blade, then you pretty much just don't run out of PP, like ever. And then that's another reason why I didn't put this to max points, is because you don't really need the PP recovery rate, and you shouldn't really be resetting your Gunblade focus gauge often. One time it should be resetting is whenever you're using this Gunblade focus overdrive. And then for this last skill here that I didn't choose all points into, Gunblade focus gauge amplifier, this is nice. It increases your focus gauge charge rate, but it only does it up to the level 1 when there's 5 levels. So it's like only increases like for that little portion, which you get like pretty much right away anyways. So that's why I want to put the 1 in there, because it does give you 50% more charge rate with the 1 skill point. But yeah, pretty much diminishing returns with the rest of the points, but it goes up to like 200% with the main and 150 with the sub. So nothing like too crazy. Let's kind of talk about all the skills though, on like why I chose them. So like the Gunblade focus, this is like the main part of the Slayer class. So this is like a focus gauge that you build up by hitting enemies, and it gives you attack potency, offensive PP recovery, and PP consumption like reduction in accordance with the gauge level, and there's 5 levels in total. And basically it has like a timer on it, so if you don't hit enemies for a certain amount of time, it then resets going down to nothing, which you don't really want to happen because you're going to be losing on all of those benefits. But basically there's just the 1 point, and each level gives this amount, 1% potency, so it goes up to 5, and then the consumption reduction goes up to 5, and the offensive PP recovery goes up to 10. So you want to keep that maxed out as much as possible. But then we have this Gunblade Focus Overdrive, which is an active skill, but only for main class. You expend your entire full focus gauge to temporarily increase the effects of Gunblade Focus, and with that you pretty much need to add it at the 5 levels, and it increases up to 110% potency, PP consumption at 80%, and PP recovery at 150%. But then also with this, like during the duration, probably near the end is what you want to do, you can do a finisher, which does like a big attack. It's kind of like Brave Combat in a way, but instead of like spamming Brave Combat like Braver does, you would want to wait pretty much the full duration. But this has a 90-second cooldown after you use it, so it takes quite a while to go through this. So you may want to save it for when a weak point is showing, or when like the enemy is downed. But then we already talked about these 2 skills. And then this here is the Gunblade Focus Critical Up. This is also main class only. But basically every level of the gauge you get 2% critical hit rate, which is really good. So pretty much more damage. More damage, more DPS. But then we have the one down here. So when the Gunblade Focus gauge is at its maximum level, or while Gunblade Focus Overdrive is active, the Unleash Rage gauge will charge up and its cooldown time will be reduced. So this is for another active skill. But basically, when the Gunblade Focus is at max at level 5, or while this thing is active here, this active skill, then you're going to be charging this skill faster, which this skill is essentially just an extra attack. It does a powerful blast that you can use up to every 20 seconds, but it kind of is like Spread Shot, or like Fanatic Blade, where you have to, or not Fanatic Blade, Pinion Blade, where you have to build up a charge to be able to use it. But I guess we'll kind of talk about the thing underneath it as well. This just like adds critical hit rate to the Unleash Rage when you activate it. So activating it leads to 5% crit rate for 20 seconds. So you definitely want that skill as well. Let's kind of go back up to the top before we get too carried away here. Up here is a passive, literally just increases critical hit rate. Each point kind of varies in because it has like diminishing returns. But when you max it out, it goes up to 5%, and then the subclass gets it at 3%. I believe like for the first 6 points, it gives you like 0.5, and then like a few points after it gives like 0.25, and then it gives like 0.2 for the rest. So you might want to find like a cutoff point there if you want to put more points into these skills, like if you really want like a high activation rate here. But honestly, you can just pump this up to max, even as a main class. And then over here, this is also increased critical hit rate, but when attacking bosses only. So, I mean, that's pretty much like the hard content in the game is involving bosses. So you definitely want this as well. This has diminishing returns too. The first 4 points give you a full % each, and then everything afterwards is like 0.2, and then the last 2 points gives you only like 0.1. So if anything, you would take points out of this before you would take points out of this skill. But then here is the critical hit PP gain. We already mentioned that. I don't know why I'm talking about it again. But over here is the short range hot shot. This increases your potency when you hit an enemy with a normal attack at close range. 30% more potency. So as long as you're nearby the enemies, you'll do more damage. Which is huge because this normal attack stuff you're going to be using for a lot of these other skills. Like this one, Charge Blade. Pressing the weapon action button at just the right time after a charged normal attack will unleash a thrust attack. So this is something that happens when you're using the charged version of the normal attack, either the first stage or the second stage, and a little bit afterwards you'll get a shine on your body, and then once you press the normal attack, or not the normal attack, but the weapon action button, then you'll go towards the enemy as like a gap closer. But down here is a slug shot. That's the next skill. Pressing the normal attack button without inputting a direction right after performing a photon art will unleash a short range shot. This is like a really powerful thing, and it gives you photon power back as well. This kind of goes into the key of like not really needing photon power. So essentially, if you time it right after using a PA, you'll do a damaging shot. And also, Relentless Blade, pressing the normal attack button at the right time while performing a photon art will allow you to perform an additional attack. So this is when you have a shine, like a smaller shine on your body. It's a little bit different than the Charge Blade, but it's in the same spot. So whenever you use a PA, you'll hit the normal attack for Relentless Blade, and then you can actually press the normal attack again to get the slug shot. So these combo together, which is really nice, as both give photon power and deal some damage. So essentially, if you do it right, you'll get enough photon power back with your PAs that essentially you should get a full refund, or almost a full refund. So you shouldn't have any issues with photon power at all. But down here is Relentless Blade Reinforce. This just increases the potency of Relentless Blade in his main class only, and it increases it by 500%. So definitely want to grab this as it's part of your key combo. But then like the final skills down here is dealing with your counters. Down here is like the normal counter. So if you press the weapon action button, you can use a normal attack or a weapon action again to do 2 different kind of counters. One is like a kind of like Braver's counter plus, where it does a slashing attack at a distance. The other one is like a quick like slash attack with the normal. And then down here, which is connected to it, blade counter critical up. This increases the blade counter's critical hit rate by 5%. Straightforward, yummy. And then over here for the last thing, the last kind of attack is the mobile blade. So this is also with the weapon action, but you have to input a direction, which will make you invincible and cause you to attack while moving. So if you want like a little bit of movement with your weapon action instead of like standing still with the blade counter, then you can use this. It also kind of acts like a sidestep instead of like a normal counter. So you can kind of use it in lingering effects like lasers or like the spots that like Dusty puts down, those kind of effects. It's nice for those. And then you can also get the skill here to be able to counter with it as well. And it works the exact same way as the blade counter. So using a normal does one counter, using a weapon action after does another. And that does all the skills though, but this is kind of like how I'd set it up as a main class. But if you were to do a subclass, you essentially don't grab any of the main class only skills, which is like quite a few. And unfortunately, both of the active skills are main class only. But essentially you put points into everything, and then you just don't fully put into the reset PP game. And that's about it. Pretty straightforward. But in terms of like how good of a subclass Slayer is, I would say it's like one of the best ones because of this critical rate, even though it only gives like 5% combined with the subclass benefits here. Because it also gets this critical hit PP gain, which you can make 100% as a subclass. So you're getting it all the time, just with the cooldown of 1 second. So you're not like constantly getting it. But this doesn't really have a condition, except for the boss thing, which doesn't really matter. Unlike Bouncer, for instance, which has like the part breaks, which give you extra damage. So some bosses it's not really good for. And then sometimes like with the down factor, here that Bouncer has, sometimes it doesn't even give you extra downs, so it might not even be useful to you. And then like with Fighter, it's only like a little bit of extra damage on downs and like PP recovery there, but you're gonna be getting PP recovery from this and getting crits all the time as well as on downs. So I think Slayer is like a pretty good choice. And just like some certain scenarios or bosses that Bouncer might be better than it in like a damage standpoint. What subclass am I running? I am running Fighter for my subclass. I should probably talk about that since you're mentioning the skill tree. Yeah, I chose Fighter for my subclass with Slayer because of the extra damage on downs. The add-on skill kind of combos into it, where you get critical rates on downed enemies. Sure, that applies to whatever class that you're playing, but because you're also getting crit from the class itself too, just like so many crits on downs and that extra damage for the downs really helps. You could also use Bouncer. Bouncer more for like enemies or bosses that get or have a lot of parts. Hunter you can use if you really need the reduction in damage, like it's just like the tanky subclass you could always go to. Braver kind of just like the same thing, kind of like a tankier class, but don't think you really need to. You can use Brave Combat as a subclass, and this doesn't need to be charged, so you can just like have this in your back pocket if you have a katana or a bow. Preferably, I guess, a bow if you don't want to like hybrid. So you'd have a bow in your back pocket and use this. Okay, so yeah, we have 4 PAs. We have Shifting Spica, which shoots a close-range photon bullet after performing a forward slash. Inputting a direction will instead cause you to rapidly close with an enemy and fire a close-range photon bullet after performing a piercing attack. I mainly use this as like a gap closer with the movement thing. So that's with the inputs direction. Then this is without inputs. Kind of like a quick like slashing attack. So it's not too bad to just kind of like fit in somewhere. And then for the second one, there's the Flowing Sirius. This does a lot of potency, but it costs like a little bit higher in photon cost. This unleashes repeated forward slashes. Doing this repeatedly would change it to a powerful attack. Inputting a direction will instead cause you to attack nearby enemies while moving. So this is what I mainly use for like DPS, for bosses, and also kind of like some movement as well. So this is when standing still, no inputs. So like there's one attack, but then you can like do it a second time, like that, which is like a bigger blast that you kind of want to get to. But then this is the movement. It's kind of like an AoE, like horizontal slash. So not too bad for moving around if you still want to like use a PA, but also good for like close quarters in a way, like with AoE. But there's also another AoE skill that is kind of like better for mobbing, and that's this Reaping Regulus. So this throws a photon bomb and retreat as it explodes. Inputting a direction will instead cause you to kick the bomb forward. The bomb explodes after traveling a certain distance. So essentially, with both of these, you're throwing a bomb. One's close range, so if you stand still, it's a closer range. If something's like right in front of you, and there's like quite a bit of enemies, then you would use that. But then for the input, you actually kick the grenade, the bomb out of there. So if they're like at a farther distance, then you would use this one. And honestly, it does pretty good damage for AoE too. But for bossing, I want to use it like at all. I don't see like too much of a use for it. But then there's Waving Rigel or Rigel. Thrust your weapon into the ground, creating a shockwave all around you. Doing this while in the air will cause you to plunge to the ground and perform the attack. Inputting a direction will instead cause you to rise while attacking the surrounding area. So this is kind of like a vertical, like movement PA. So it's kind of niche for certain bosses or enemies. But this is without moving, kind of like a slam. So if you're already on the ground, it looks kind of weird. But if I jump up and slam, there it is. And then for the movement, you actually slash upwards up to a certain amount. Yeah, I believe if you do the one that is movement already in the air, then it doesn't move you any higher. Unless if you actually start hitting something, like possibly like a box or an enemy. But a lot of the time you're going to be using your weapon action, which is slashes itself. It slashes up to 3 times in a combo, but if you do it right before an enemy attacks you, then you can repel it, essentially doing a guard frame, but then can do a counter afterwards if you have the skill. And then there's the normal attack, which also has different like stages to it because you can charge it. Yeah, this is just like a regular normal attack, but then you can charge it here. It has 2 stages. So if you just charge it a little bit, it looks like that, like a rapid fire. If you hold it all the way to stage 2, then it does a big photon blast. It's kind of like an AoE or piercing bullet. But also as part of that, if you have the skill, you get a little glow afterwards and can do a gap close. Yeah, also with each PA, you can do the Relentless Blade and the Slug Shot. Doesn't matter which one that you do, but you get this like glow on you. If you time it right, then you can do both. So if you see that little circle right there, like in between, see the extra little shot? So this is like me just doing it normally. But there's like a second attack. That is the Relentless Blade that is happening. But then if I do that extra little blast from the gun, that's the Slug Shot. And it does pretty good damage. And both of those attacks give you photon power back. So you definitely want to fit these in between, like pretty much each PA, if you can. Because that way it allows you to combo and pretty much endlessly use PAs and not have to use the regular normal attack. Yeah, also with the weapon action, if you have the other version, so instead of just like the regular slashes, you can also do a mobile blade. This is kind of just like another like movement ability, but also gives you iframes, makes you invincible, and in that you can also counter just the same way as with the regular weapon action. But with this, as it's iframes instead of like guard frames, you can use it in lingering effects, so like lasers and whatnot, to do it pretty much repeatedly. Okay, that's pretty much everything that I have on Slayer so far. I can't imagine that it, like, the combos would change too much. I mean, there might be some hidden things about the PAs, or maybe that grenade actually is good with, you know, bosses for some reason. Or maybe this ability is actually good to, like, spam against the boss, just doing that over and over again, but also chaining, like, the Slug Shot and Relentless Blade, who knows. But, let me know what you guys think after you guys try it, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.